in Hollywood, it was after I did Coach Carter, and I saw Eddie Murphy and Johnny Gill tongue kissing,
Oh.
and this is like out in public.
There was someone you were involved with, and because of the gay rumors, you actually did a polygraph test with her. That's wild, man.
Yeah.
That's wild to have to actually go through that extent to show that you're straight.
Johnny Gill is done hiding his affair with Eddie Murphy, and now he tells everything. For decades, whispers followed the Hollywood legend, hinting at more than friendship between the comedy king and the R&B star.
You know, it was crazy because the rumor had been going for so long.
Fans claim the signs were everywhere: matching jewelry, late-night mansion visits, even shocking public moments that Nicole Murphy herself couldn't ignore.
I always am attracted to an alpha male. I don't care. He has to be the strong male in the room. He has to be that male that all the other males look up to and want to be or admire.
Some call it Hollywood's biggest open secret. Yet behind the cameras, where the laughter faded, lay a world of tension, quiet battles, and untold truths waiting to be uncovered.
I was walking down the stairs because I was just checking out. It was in the Hollywood Hills, so I was walking down the stairs and they were kissing at the bottom of the banister.
For decades, Eddie Murphy stood at the top of Hollywood's comedy world. His energy, his charm, and his ability to turn anything into a joke made him one of the most successful entertainers alive. But behind the laughter, whispers about his personal life followed him everywhere. At the center of those whispers was one name that kept coming back again and again: Johnny Gill. Johnny Gill wasn't just any R&B singer. He was a powerhouse vocalist, the man whose voice gave New Edition a second life in the late 80s. When Eddie and Johnny's paths crossed, fans immediately noticed how close they became. At first, it looked like a regular friendship between two stars. But as time went on, the stories got louder. There were claims of matching jewelry, the kind of expensive pieces that usually symbolize something more than just friendship. There were reports of Johnny living in Eddie's guest house, a rumor that refused to die, even after both men denied it. And then there were the late-night mansion visits, sightings of Johnny's car outside Eddie's home that tabloids jumped on with no hesitation. One of the most striking moments came from Johnny Gill himself. During a highly publicized interview, Johnny took a lie detector test to shut the rumors down. He denied being romantically involved with Eddie Murphy. The machine showed that he was telling the truth. Still, instead of killing the gossip, the moment only added fuel to it. Fans wondered why the test was even necessary in the first place.
There was someone you were involved with, and because of the gay rumors, you actually did a polygraph test with her. That's wild, man.
Yeah.
That's wild to have to actually go through that extent to show that you're straight. Like that's crazy to me.
You know, it was crazy because the rumor had been going for so long.
Behind the scenes, people in Hollywood whispered that it was an open secret. Insiders, even comedians, would throw out jokes or quiet references about Eddie and Johnny's bond. In an industry where appearances meant everything, those rumors became part of Eddie's shadow, always following him. Never completely confirmed, but never going away either. Some people pointed to Eddie's marriage to Nicole Murphy as proof that the rumors couldn't possibly be true. They were one of Hollywood's most glamorous couples in the 1990s, raising 5 children together. But even during that marriage, the speculation about Johnny Gill never really stopped. Nicole herself was said to be uncomfortable with how close Eddie and Johnny were, whether that discomfort was based on fact or just gossip. It added another layer of tension to an already complicated story. The entertainment media of the time loved the whispers. Tabloids ran headlines suggesting Eddie was living a double life. Radio hosts made jokes. Paparazzi camped out trying to catch any moment that might confirm the stories. And while Eddie laughed most of it off publicly, the rumors did real damage. They made people question his image. They made fans dig into his every move. They blurred the line between Eddie Murphy, the superstar comedian, and Eddie Murphy, the private man. Johnny Gill, for his part, tried to carry on with his music career, but the constant association with Eddie made it harder for him to escape the gossip. Interviews that were supposed to be about his albums or his time with New Edition often turned back to Eddie Murphy. No matter what Johnny did, the shadow of that rumored relationship followed him too. By the early 2000s, the Whispers had become more than just a Hollywood sideshow. They were a permanent part of Eddie Murphy's public identity. For some fans, the idea of Eddie and Johnny together became almost legendary, something to gossip about, laugh about, or argue about at family gatherings and barbershops. For others, it was a distraction from the real story. Two black men at the top of their industries, dealing with fame, pressure, and expectations in a world that refused to let them live without judgment. Whether true or not, the Eddie Murphy-Johnny Gill connection remains one of Hollywood's longest-running stories. It shows how powerful rumors can be, powerful enough to outlast marriages, careers, and even lie detector tests. And for Eddie, it became the first of many personal controversies that would shape how the world saw him outside of the spotlight. If the whispers about Johnny Gill had Eddie Murphy dodging rumors, the year 1997 brought something he couldn't laugh off. It was the scandal that stopped Hollywood in its tracks. And for Eddie, it was one of the most embarrassing headlines of his career. Late one night in West Hollywood, Eddie was pulled over by police after picking up Addison Shalimar Sayuli, a transgender prostitute. Eddie explained that he was just being a good Samaritan, offering someone a ride home. But by then, the damage was already done.
Looks like a pretty Hawaiian girl in the corner crying. It looks like she was crying. She goes, "Oh, Eddie Murphy." She noticed him at the light. She recognized Eddie Murphy. Oh my God. So I go, "What are you doing? Why are you out here working the streets so late?" She goes, "Oh, I'm on my way home. Can you give me a ride home?" I love my wife, and I'm not gay, and I'm not, and that's what's weird about this, to have your sexuality question and your moral fiber question and all that, when all I was doing was trying to be nice to somebody.
The media exploded with the story. Tabloids plastered his face across covers. Comedians built entire routines around it. For an entertainer who had built his empire on charm and wit, Eddie was suddenly the butt of the joke. Worse still, the timing couldn't have been more devastating. The incident came right as Eddie was balancing family life with Nicole Murphy and trying to keep his reputation spotless. Instead, the scandal cast a long shadow over both his marriage and his career. What made things even more complicated was how the story connected back to the whispers about Johnny Gill. To fans who already believed Eddie was hiding something, the arrest seemed like confirmation of their suspicions. Overnight, Eddie's private life became front-page news, and his friendship with Johnny Gill was dragged back into the spotlight. For months, Eddie couldn't escape the fallout. Jokes about the incident followed him to interviews, late-night TV, and stand-up shows across the country. Even when Eddie tried to move forward, the scandal stuck to him like glue. To make matters worse, tragedy struck just months later when Shalimar Sayuli, the very person at the center of the scandal, died in a suspicious fall from an apartment building. The sudden death only fueled more speculation, adding an eerie edge to an already controversial story. The 1997 incident didn't end Eddie's career, but it changed how people looked at him. Suddenly, he wasn't just the funny man from Raw or the cool detective from Beverly Hills Cop. He was a superstar with secrets the world wasn't going to stop digging into anytime soon. At first glance, Eddie and Nicole Murphy looked like the picture-perfect Hollywood couple. She was the statuesque model who turned heads everywhere she went, and he was the box office king who could do no wrong. Together, they embodied wealth, beauty, and black celebrity royalty. But behind the red carpet smiles, their marriage carried heavy baggage. The whispers about Eddie's closeness to Johnny Gill had already made Nicole uneasy. To some, she wasn't just competing with other women for her husband's affection. She was competing with Eddie's closest male friend. Rumors of late-night visits and secret hangouts were a constant storm cloud hanging over their union. Then came the 1997 prostitute incident. Nicole and the children were out of town when the scandal broke, but the headlines reached her quickly. Paparazzi hounded her, tabloids speculated about her humiliation, and the whispers only grew louder. Publicly, Eddie insisted he was just offering someone a ride, but privately, Nicole felt betrayed and drained. For a wife raising 5 children, the constant cycle of gossip and scandal was unbearable. By the early 2000s, the marriage was unraveling. Reports of late-night scandals and alleged infidelities piled on, and Nicole began to distance herself. Friends said she felt trapped in a marriage where she had to defend Eddie against the world, only to be embarrassed again and again. In August 2005, Nicole made the decision that shocked many but surprised few. She filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. After 13 years of marriage, one of Hollywood's most glamorous unions was over. The divorce was finalized in 2006, officially ending a chapter that had once seemed untouchable.
Someone who's the opposite of me, and it's like pulling teeth to get them to do stuff. So that's not fun for me. And I think that takes a toll on the relationship later on.
For Eddie, the divorce was more than just a personal loss. It was a blow to his public image. He was no longer the family man standing proudly beside Nicole at premieres. Instead, he was a single superstar with a tarnished reputation, a trail of scandals, and a growing sense that his personal life was becoming entertainment for the world to laugh at. He later said he wasn't gay and was only trying to be nice to somebody, but according to fans, that was already late.
I love my wife, and I'm not gay, and I'm not, and that's what's weird about this, to have your sexuality question and your moral fiber question and all that, when all I was doing was trying to be nice to somebody.
Nicole, on the other hand, emerged from the marriage with her own spotlight, building her brand and identity apart from Eddie. But she never escaped the narrative, never changed her last name. And when she was asked, she dimply said she earned that name.
I earned my name. I deserve my name. I have 5 children with that name.
Other rumored relationships and explosive claims. As Eddie's marriage crumbled and Johnny Gill remained firmly in his inner circle, more explosive claims began surfacing. It wasn't just Nicole who felt something was off. Outsiders were beginning to speak up too. One of the boldest voices was Octavia Street Lauren. She was a transgender woman who claimed she and Eddie had a relationship. But her anger wasn't just about romance. According to her, Eddie kept her in the shadows, never acknowledging her publicly while maintaining the image of the charming family man. For Lauren, it was humiliation. For the tabloids, it was gasoline on an already raging rumor mill.
You got big-time celebrities that go around in their cars picking up trans, having with them, and then getting on national TV making fun of them. Our whole world is being run by undercover fags that run around talking about how straight they are.
Octavia Street Lauren. Didn't mice her words, she called Eddie out with her full chest and dared him for saying that she was lying.
And the women that they're married to wouldn't believe a word you said about them. And these are the reason why we have to start speaking out. Men who are famous or straight or perceived to be these macho guys are coming out behind their wives, their children, having oral, being the women.
Then came the drama with Tracy Edmonds. Eddie and Tracy had a highly publicized engagement, but things fell apart quickly. Johnny Gill himself chimed in, reportedly pointing the finger at Tracy's mother as the reason for the breakup. But Tracy clapped back, calling his comments outrageous lies and dropping the cryptic line, "We all know the real truth." To Eddie's fans, it was just a messy Hollywood breakup. To conspiracy theorists, it was yet another sign that Johnny was far too invested in Eddie's personal life. And it didn't stop there. One of Johnny Gill's own ex-girlfriends allegedly admitted she broke things off because she couldn't compete with Eddie. Imagine that, being in a relationship where the biggest rival wasn't another woman, but your boyfriend's best friend. That statement became one of the most quoted lines in gossip circles, reinforcing the idea that the Eddie-Johnny bond wasn't just close, it was unshakable. In 1996, comedian Pierre found himself at Johnny Gill's 4th of July barbecue in Encino, and what he saw still sticks with him today. He pulled up to a mansion full of luxury cars, Bentleys, Porsches, Mercedes, and inside, a house full of stars. Johnny Gill, Sugar Ray Leonard, Charlie Murphy, and yes, Eddie Murphy himself. Pierre didn't even recognize Eddie at first, sunglasses on, twists in his hair, until Eddie took the glasses off. Trying to be funny, Pierre looked straight at Eddie and said, "Oh yeah, you're the best defense guy, right?" Referencing one of Eddie's worst movies.
And I was like, and he picked BT, and I did videos, movies, the lowest my shit. So I looked at him, yeah, oh, you the best defense guy. He did. I tell you, the whole room got quiet. Everybody looked at me.
Wow.
And for like, it probably lasted 3 seconds, but for like a minute, man. I was like.
The room went dead silent. Everyone froze, and then Eddie broke into a chuckle, and the whole party erupted in laughter. That moment showed Eddie's good humor, but it also revealed something else. Eddie wasn't just another guest. He was moving inside Johnny's inner circle, almost like family. The rumors weren't just limited to the tabloids. Inside Hollywood, the Whispers had a life of their own. Former assistants, close friends, and even fellow comedians would drop cryptic hints about Eddie and Johnny's bond, sometimes laughing it off, sometimes shaking their heads like it was common knowledge. One story that refuses to die is the infamous Diddy Party tale, where guests allegedly spotted Eddie and Johnny disappearing together for private time. Whether true or not, the story spread like wildfire in industry circles. Meanwhile, Johnny's own public dating history only fueled suspicion. His rare relationship seemed short-lived, often overshadowed by Eddie's constant presence. To some, this was proof of loyalty. To others, it was the clearest sign that the so-called open secret was never just a rumor. But as Eddie's career kept soaring, Hollywood seemed torn. Was it safer to ignore the whispers, or to acknowledge what everyone was already thinking? While the whispers about Eddie's personal life swirled in the background, his professional world was already under fire. Long before Twitter cancel culture, Eddie's stand-up specials Delirious, 1983, and Raw, 1987, had cemented him as a comedy king, but also planted the seeds for future backlash. The red leather suit, the unfiltered swagger, the way he commanded a stage. Eddie was untouchable. Yet buried inside the laughs were jokes about AIDS, homosexuality, and racial stereotypes that would later draw harsh criticism. By the mid-1990s, activists and critics alike were calling him out. Eddie himself admitted years later that the material made him uncomfortable in hindsight, even publicly apologizing in 1996. For some fans, this was proof of growth. For others, the apology came too late. But comedy wasn't his only battlefield. In 1995, Eddie's relationship with Saturday Night Live, the very show that made him a household name, turned sour after a biting jab from cast member David Spade. During a Hollywood Minute sketch, Spade quipped about Eddie being a falling star. The joke cut deep. For Eddie, it wasn't just shade, it was betrayal from the show he had helped revive. The feud kept him away from SNL for decades, only softening when he finally returned as host in 2019. And then came his clash with Bill Cosby. When Eddie poked fun at Cosby during a later SNL monologue, Cosby's camp lashed back, branding Murphy a Hollywood slave. Suddenly, Eddie found himself caught in a generational war about comedy, race, and respect. His gift had always been fearlessness, but in a changing industry, that same fearlessness often made him a lightning rod. As Eddie battled controversies off stage, the glow of his once unstoppable box office run began to fade. For every blockbuster like Beverly Hills Cop or Coming to America, there were projects that bombed so badly they almost rewrote his reputation. In 1984, Best Defense was a disaster that nearly ended his rising career before it fully took off, saved only by the success of Beverly Hills Cop later that year. Years later, flops like Holy Man, 1998, and the infamous The Adventures of Pluto Nash, 2002, cemented a darker narrative. Eddie was no longer the golden ticket at the box office, but nothing stung quite like the so-called Norbit effect. In 2006, Eddie delivered the performance of his life in Dreamgirls, earning critical acclaim and an Academy Award nomination. Many believed the Oscar was his to lose, until Norbit dropped weeks before the ceremony. The film was widely panned, its crude humor overshadowing his dramatic breakthrough. When Alan Arkin won the Oscar instead, fans blamed Norbit for ruining Eddie's shot at Hollywood's highest honor. Behind the scenes, Eddie was chasing projects that never materialized. One especially controversial film, a biopic of Marion Barry, the scandal-plagued mayor of Washington, D.C., was scrapped before it could even start. Each missed opportunity and flop made the comeback road even harder. By the mid-2000s, Eddie's invincible image had cracked. He was still a star, but no longer untouchable, a comedy king whose crown now came with dents. After the sting of career misfires and public backlash, Eddie began pulling away from the Hollywood spotlight. For a man who once defined box office success, the retreat was striking. Instead of chasing every script, he started saying no, sometimes disappearing from the industry for years at a time. Friends and insiders whispered that Eddie was wrestling with more than just bad press. The pressures of fame, the ridicule from tabloids, and the disappointment of losing that Oscar momentum weighed heavily. Some described him as battling bouts of depression, others as simply exhausted from decades of being under the brightest lights. While his peers hustled for roles and red carpets, Eddie spent more time at home, focusing on his children and private life. Paparazzi still caught glimpses, the occasional coffee run, the rare public outing, but gone was the man chasing the Hollywood grind. In many ways, Eddie's retreat was survival. By stepping back, he shielded himself from the noise, the gossip, and the relentless criticism. But it also created a void, leaving fans wondering if the comedy king they grew up with was gone for good. For the first time in his career, Eddie Murphy wasn't running Hollywood. He was watching it from the sidelines. After years of scandals, setbacks, and whispers, it's easy to forget one thing. Eddie Murphy's story didn't begin with controversy. To truly understand his legacy, we have to rewind the clock, back before the fame, before the gossip, before Hollywood crowned him a king. Because at the heart of all the rumors and headlines is a kid from Brooklyn who turned laughter into power. And that's where it all began. Born in Brooklyn in 1961, Eddie Murphy's childhood was far from glamorous. His father, a transit cop and amateur comedian, was murdered when Eddie was just a boy. His mother battled illness, leaving Eddie and his brother in foster care for a time. Out of that instability came Eddie's weapon, humor. By mimicking voices, cracking jokes, and making people laugh, he found a way to escape pain and shape his identity. By his teens, Eddie was hustling comedy clubs around New York, performing impressions that would later become iconic. From Richard Pryor to Elvis, his talent was undeniable, and by age 19, he landed a spot on Saturday Night Live. Almost overnight, Eddie became the face of the show, reviving SNL during a period when it was struggling to survive. Then came Hollywood, hits like 48 Hours, 1982, Trading Places, 1983, and the record-breaking Beverly Hills Cop, 1984, turned Eddie into a global superstar. He wasn't just funny, he was magnetic, a black entertainer dominating a space where few before him had been allowed to shine. Coming to America cemented him as both a comedic genius and cultural icon. This was the Eddie Murphy the world first fell in love with. Raw, fearless, and destined to change comedy forever. And while scandals, rumors, and feuds may have shadowed his journey, they can't erase it. Because when history remembers Eddie Murphy, it won't just be the whispers or the backlash. It will be the undeniable truth that he rose from nothing, changed comedy, and left a legacy few can touch.